So welcome into the Psych with Mike library. I am here with Mr. Brett Newcomb.
Hello again.
And Mr. Brett just returned
from a 1,000-mile journey. Several thousand miles.
7,000 miles.
Yeah, several.
And go ahead.
Well, I am stunned again by the beauty and vastness of this nation and the things that you can see if you get off of the interstate and you just have the opportunity and the time to go driving around. There are so many incredible things to be in awe of.
And the fact that we have the freedom and liberty to just
Absolutely.
get in a car and
go and
do
not
that.
have to have permission.
Right. You don't have to show anybody your papers or ask
No.
permission. Yeah.
Yeah. It was wonderful. We spent 2.5 weeks on the road just prowling around, just wandering.
And I saw a lot of the pictures. They were incredible. I asked you if you were okay with sharing them, and you said yes. So in the future, I will post some of your most recent pictures, but also then do that as it's happening. I'll be going to Jamaica in the not too distant future, and we'll post some of that as well. So.
Yeah, cool.
So when you came back and we started talking about what we wanted to sit down and discuss today, I was telling you that I have a handful of clients actually whose parents came to me and they said, this is what's going on with my child. And then they kind of want to say to you, so fix my child and then my problem will be over. But the problem is that the child is completely functional. I mean, there are no disabilities. They're completely healthy. They are of average or above average intelligence. They've finished school.
Successfully completed school, college, high school.
Yeah. And yet they have absolutely no motivation to get jobs, to do anything. And the children themselves find no cognitive dissonance in that.
Yeah.
But the parents do.
Well, that seems to be, from what I read in the media, that seems to be a pervasive concern for this latest upcoming generation of adolescents that become of age to be college graduates. Some of them are college graduates. Some of them have loans that they have no idea how they'll ever pay off or can't get out from under, and they're worried about that. Some of them didn't go to college, and they say, I don't know. Why should I engage? Why should I do that? I just stay here where I am. I'll live in my parents' house. They have a swimming pool. They have 3 or 4 cars. We have a dog. We have a maid. What's for me to do here? And the resistance that a lot of 16, 17, 18-year-olds have to getting a driver's license. They have no urgent sense of, I need to be mobile. I need to get out. I need to go and do things. They're very content to hang around the house and watch TV or play video games or hang out with their friends or not.
And so in my experience, in my clinical experience, when this happens, the parents come to my office and they want to hand the child to me and say, here, fix the child. Do you think that is the most effective way of dealing with that?
No, I don't think it's the most effective way to deal with it, but I understand it. I mean, I remember years ago I had a gentleman come to see me under duress. His wife made him come because she had brought his high school age son in to see me for similar concerns, and this is many years ago. And I said, well, I need to get some sense of who the dad is. I need to meet him. I need to talk to him about what his perceptions are, what it is he's looking for here. So under a lot of duress, the dad came in, and we had a conversation about what my encounter with his son had been and his wife and what I thought, and wanted some feedback from him. And he looked at me and left. Now, he was a very high-level executive functioning corporate official. And he said, I write a check every week for you to fix this crap. I don't have time to deal with it, so I'm not coming back. It's your job. And they left.
And so let me just talk about it a little bit from...
Yeah, where do you go with that?
Well, I mean, I think we know where you go with that. But let me just talk about what my experience is from the side of somebody hands you a child and then says, here, fix this child with this issue. And then we can talk about what we think maybe would be a better way of addressing a situation like this. So when this happens for me, I try and assess with the child what is their understanding of the situation? Do they actually understand that at some point in the future they need to adult, and that they are going to have to either live in their parents' home, or they're going to have a job because they're going to have to be able to take care of themselves?
What if they choose to adult in ways that are not acceptable to you? Then what? Say I have a child that says, I don't want to work a job that has overtime. I don't want to work a 40-hour-a-week job. I'm not worried about making enough money to buy a castle in Chesterfield. I want to just I want to hang out with my friends, and I want to go to concerts, and I want to go camping, and I want to go hiking, and I don't need the things that you seem to need for validity. So then what do you say?
Well, actually, for me, I don't have a problem with that. Now, the parents may have a problem with that.
Well, they're going to. Many of them, if not most. Yeah.
Because I feel like people have every right to be self-directed. If a child doesn't need all of the trappings that we would consider to be affluence.
If you are functional, if you don't get in trouble with the law, if you can pay your bills, if you can afford your lifestyle, then you should be able to choose it. And it should be your business.
Right.
I agree with that. But as a counselor, then I have to spend a lot of time talking to the parents to say, how can we get you around to looking at your child as an individual person with his own direction, and to be okay with that? I mean, the same issue, what if your child is gay? Well, I mean, there are feelings that everybody has about that, but if your child is gay, your child is gay. So how are you going to make your peace with it and have a relationship with the child? Or are you going to terminate the relationship? And it's the same ultimate conversation when you're talking about the teenager who won't engage. I mean, at some point, then what?
Well, and for me, the idea is that people have the right to be self-directed, and that you have the responsibility to honor and respect them enough that you are willing to accept that their ideas about what their future should look like don't match yours.
Well, but in doing that, then you have to have conversations about, like, does my 17-year-old child have the right to have an Apple phone that he hasn't paid for, that he isn't going to buy?
Oh, absolutely.
He wants me to buy him one because he needs to have one. He should have one.
But then that is when I'm working with the child, that's actually conversations that I have with them is, okay, you have a cell phone that you don't pay for.
Right.
Who's going to pay for that if your parents decide they're not going to?
Right.
You have a computer that you use on a daily basis that you didn't pay for. You don't pay for the electricity. And those are the kind of conversations that I have with the child.
Sure.
And say, do you recognize...
You have the same conversation with the parents. You have to say to the parents, you know what, if you are looking for leverage, if you're looking for the ability to look at your child and say, you know what, you're claiming your independence, that you want to live this way, these are your values, that my values are not your values. If you want me to support that, then let's talk about, rent. Let's talk about food cost, electricity, iPhone, computer. Those are all going to come to a stop if you don't function a little bit more in line with what I'm willing to support.
And I agree with that. I'm just saying that a lot of times they come in, they just say, here's the child, and you don't have access to the parents.
Yeah.
Now, eventually you may need to say, look, I think I'm at an end with the child, and I need to have a conversation with you. You can either do that or not do that.
That was one of the conversations that we always had in training people to be therapists. Do you see a child as an independent entity, or do you see a child as a part of a family grouping?
Right.
And at some point, you have to get the parents involved. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to make... I mean, it's such a conglomerate of things. I can remember talking to adolescents where I would say to the adolescent with complete honesty, son, you and I both know that your parents are crazy as hell. You're not going to fix them by your rebellion, by your failure to engage, or your failure to be successful in school, or whatever the immediate target of opportunity is. You're not going to fix them. They're crazy. So let's talk about what you need to do to make your life functional and work for you without getting yourself in legal trouble, in jail, in health issues because of drug addictions or alcohol addictions or police problems. Let's talk about how you're going to survive and write a different script for your life than the one they've written for you. I used to talk to adolescents all the time and say, you're in the back seat of the car of your life. and somebody's driving it.
Right.
The high school teacher, the principal, the school board, your parents, the preacher at church. Some adult is driving your car down the highway, and you're just in the back seat going wherever it's going. When you get ready to become an adult, you have to move into the front seat and take the wheel. And if you don't choose to do that, then you will always find somebody that'll drive your car. You'll find a boss, you'll find a husband or a wife, you'll find a child that'll step up and be the overly parentified child who steps up in a dysfunctional family and says,
Right.
Mom, you need to go cook dinner.
But even for that to happen, you'd at least have to get out of the house and engage in relationships and find a significant other and
Yeah.
a lot of these kids, or I mean, I'm not saying this is a huge section of the population, but the kids that I have that are in this psychological diffusion, this identity diffusion, they're not even doing that. I mean, they're not dating, they're not leaving the house. They're completely content to be in the house, probably not even having much interaction with other people.
How content are they to come and see you?
They do it.
Willing to?
They
look
don't.
forward to it? They have things they want to talk about, or they just show up and be polite?
Usually they show up and be polite. It takes a long time to develop rapport in that situation. Usually after time, you do develop rapport. The child does come in and is communicative. Whether or not they're burning up with desire to get to their counseling appointment, I wouldn't say that. But they're more than polite. I mean, they're actually engaged. Yeah. But they just don't. I mean, cognitively, there's no dissonance there. There's nothing that they have no conflict with the fact that they're just in the house eating their parents' food, playing on their computers all day long, and that is the extent and sum total of their life.
So what do you do with that?
Well, so then I start out saying, hey, do you realize that at some point, because I really like your car, I'm going to steal that, by the way, the car analogy of sitting in the back seat of your life and somebody else is driving, because that's what I try and do is say, look, you're at home and maybe your parents are willing to let you live there forever. Let's assume for the sake of argument that would happen. At some point, if, biology is working here, your parents are likely going to reach the end of their lifespan before you do. Inevitably, at some point, there's going to come a time where you're not going to be able to live this way. Have you ever considered what that would look like? And most of them say, no, I've never considered that. But they all acknowledge that they understand
that someday that'll happen. They just can't imagine the day. Right.
And so that's where I start.
So then do you ask them to fantasize about what if that happened today? What would you need to do? Well,
actually, I ask them to fantasize about when that day comes, what would that look like for you?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same question.
Yeah.
But so then engaging them in exploratory fantasy about what would you do about housing? Well, live in the house. Well, what if parents owe a mortgage and they're not bringing home an income and the bank comes and takes the house and they move you out on the street? Then what? I don't know.
Right, because they've never...
I'll go live with my girlfriend. You have a girlfriend? No, but I'll get one.
Yeah.
They don't know.
Right. Well, and if I'm talking to the parents, then that's actually my message to the parent is that there is no better motivator than necessity.
Right.
When a person has to do something to stay alive, because the parent's argument is, well, if I do take this hard tack that you're talking about and I, let's say, put them out, then they're going to be living on the street. And I'm say, yeah, they might live on the street for some period of time. And one of two things is going to happen. Either they're going to adapt and figure out how to live on the street successfully, or they're going to figure out that they actually don't want to live on the street and they'll find a job and they'll...
Well, and there's a middle place too there. Some of them get so hurt or lost that they turn to drugs and overdose and die.
Sure. And that's so, another
I
concern that the parent
has. Good friends who were advised to tough love their child into functional living, and they tried really hard to follow the advice that they were given, and provide tough love, the kid died.
Right.
And
And that's why I always say to people, anybody who tells you this is the way to do it, that's a lie.
Yeah.
There's no right way to do anything. I mean, there are analogies where people tough love their child and it was the best thing that ever happened to their
absolutely.
kid. There are examples of people who tough love their child, just as you're saying, and the child died. And so there's not a right or wrong way. The problem is you're never going to know which of those outcomes you're going to get until you do it.
So you roll the dice. You have to make the best choice that you can live with.
And I try and be very open about that anytime that you come up in therapy with that kind of irreconcilable choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Between a rock and a hard place. You know, and so one choice you can make is to say, I modeling for my child, I refuse to engage. I won't call this shot. So I'll just wait, and time will tell. Something will happen, you know. Some cute little girl will move in next door and catch his eye, and that'll provide him with an incentive to put his computer down. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. You know, I tell adults who were single and who were talking about how am I going to find somebody, you know. And I said, well, did you go out? Do you go to someplace where you're going to find people? Well, no, I just sit home, I watch TV. So you think somebody's just going to be driving down the street, stop their car, get out, knock on the door and say, is there some cute, smart, attractive, entertaining guy that lives here who needs a woman? Well, no. I said, well, then why are you living your life that way?
Right.
Huh? I said, why are you living your life that way? What do you mean? I said, you're making the choice to not go in harm's way. You're just hiding in the closet. And you're expecting that somebody will come and knock on the door and say, I'm here for you. That's really not likely to happen. As a matter of fact, I don't know anybody it's ever happened to.
Yeah. Well, obviously, that seems statistically highly improbable. I guess I would have to say that in the entire history of time, maybe that happened once. But I've never heard of it.
I've never heard of it. But do you realize what we're talking about? We started talking about children that don't engage. And what do you do if a parent brings that child to you and says, here, get this kid engaged? We're talking about anybody that doesn't engage. Children, adults, married couples, people that refuse to seek employment. When you don't accept ownership for your life, if you don't get in the front seat and drive, if you don't have a goal, you don't have a direction, a destiny that you are seeking, then you're a lost soul. And
really, we're talking about anytime you're faced with an intractable choice. I mean, you know, it doesn't matter whether they're engaging or not. If somebody's doing something that you don't like, we're talking about boundaries.
Right.
In the end. But one of the things that I do say to both the child and to the parent is that I am abjectly opposed to the concept of allowing somebody to have adult freedoms without taking adult responsibility.
Okay.
So you don't get to say, oh, I want to drive your car, but I don't want to have a job. Or I want you to buy me a cell phone, but I want to live in the basement and not have any other responsibility. So parents oftentimes...
But you don't just do that when a kid's 15. I mean, you have to start that when a kid's 3.
Well, yes.
You need to make your bed.
But I might not get them until they're 15.
I know, you may not get them then. Right. But realistically, to parents out there who are struggling with this issue, you know, how do you back your way into this? You don't just take somebody at 17 and say, like especially, I tell dads all the time, you know, my kid doesn't talk to me the way he talks to his mother. My kid, you know, sasses me or gives me lip or gives me attitude or what have you. I said, where were you when the kid was 3 or 4? Well, I was working. You know, I was working. She had to take care of that. And I said, well, if you don't spend the time to earn the relationship, you're not going to have the relationship.
Right.
So the same thing is true about boundaries. You start teaching children when they are young that their choices have consequences. I can remember saying to my kid, you're making a really bad choice right now. When he was 4, 5, 6, and he'd have some kind of a meltdown, and I would say, okay, here's the deal. If you continue this meltdown for 3 more minutes, you know, I want you got 5 minutes to get your composure. These are things that you can do to get your composure. They're proven in the past to do. Go take a shower, run around the house, do 20 push-ups, whatever it might be. And then we can have a conversation. But you're not going to talk to me this way. You're not going to talk to your mother this way. And you're not going to throw a fit and throw things around in the house. That's not happening. So if you continue to make that choice, here is the consequence. and this will happen.
Right. And I even say to parents and to children, I say to the child, I'm going to encourage your parents to love and respect you enough to honor your choice.
Amen.
Right. Because the parents will say, oh, well, I can't do that or whatever. And I say, the child is telling you that's what they want you to do.
Yeah.
They want you to set the boundary. They don't want you to let them live this way.
Well, but then another piece of that is the family blessed to have two engaged parents? Mm-hmm. And do those two parents share a common set of goals about parenting?
Right.
And especially about discipline and consequences.
And that's a tough one.
When you don't have that, then you're flying with a crippled wing. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a problem. Mm-hmm. So in the ideal family, or the idealized family, you have parents that support one another and that can take turns. When you come home at the end of the day and you've been at work all day and you've had a nice job as an executive and you tell people and you snap your fingers and say, go do that, and they go do it. And then you come home and your wife meets you at the front door and she's exhausted and depleted. Mm-hmm. You got 3 little kids running around screaming and yelling and nobody knows what's going on. And you want the house cleaned up and nice and dinner on the table. Mm-hmm. And why didn't the kids have their bath? And you didn't do any of that. You got a problem. Mm-hmm. So you have to learn to engage, and you have to learn to do it, and you have to teach your children to do it.
Right.
This is your day of the week to cook dinner for the family. So you need to plan a menu. Next Tuesday is your day as well. And the Tuesday after that, the Tuesdays are your day. Mm-hmm. So let's sit down and plan a menu for every Tuesday this month. Let's see what kind of groceries we need, if you're going to have to go to the store and buy them, if we have them in the house, and what kind of meal can you fix. And whatever you cook, that's what we're going to eat.
Right.
And everybody's going to eat it.
So I think that in the end, what we're really talking about is what I think counseling therapy always comes down to is
good
that
parenting.
Communication and boundaries would solve a lot of the world's problems. And in the absence of those things go off the rails.
Yeah.
But you have to be diligent in following through with those things.
And it's really easy to get distracted, and it's really easy to get afraid, and it's really easy to be alone. So it helps if you have a counselor, if you have somebody that can hold their head in the middle of the chaos and say, okay, let's all catch a breath. Let's slow down. Let's talk about what's a reasonable next step for solving this problem. Because it's not a miracle. It's not let's all pray and it'll be better. Let's find a baby step right now that we can do, another step we can do tomorrow, another step we can do next week. Let's do it consistently, honestly, with communication.
Yeah.
If you talk to me in that tone of voice, this is what will happen. This is what I'll do or not do. So can I pull the trigger on that?
Right.
That's the challenge.
That's the challenge.
Will I remember and will I do it? And then when the kid escalates, what am I going to do about that?
So hopefully that was beneficial for somebody out there. We're looking for people to get in contact with us. You can get us through the website where the podcast lives, which is psychwithmike.com. If you are watching us on YouTube, in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen is a subscribe button. So click on that, like our videos. We love hearing from people, and as the audience is growing, we've started to hear from people, and we really, really, really appreciate that.
And if you're watching us on YouTube, turn your device to landscape so that there's an opportunity to make comments on YouTube should you want to make a comment.
Yes, we would always welcome that. The music that appears in Psych with Mike is written and performed by Mr. Benjamin DeClue, and if it's Friday, it's Psych with Mike.